She suddenly became unattractive to her millionaire CEO husband after getting pregnant. What she did next was unbelievable. Natalia? Adrian's voice cracked with disbelief as he stared across the mahogany conference table. My God, you're stunning. She looked up from the architectural blueprints spread before her, her emerald eyes cold as winter frost. Mr. Montague. Her voice was silk over steel. I understand you need an architect. I can't believe it's really you. After all these years, you're here. He gestured helplessly at the woman before him, searching for words. What, Adrian? Successful? Beautiful? Everything you said I could never be. Her smile was sharp as a blade. Or are you remembering the last words you spoke to me? When you called me disgusting for carrying your child? The blonde beside him gasped audibly. Adrian, what is she talking about? But Adrian couldn't speak. He could only stare at the magnificent woman who had once been his wife, the woman he had thrown away like garbage, now commanding the most prestigious architectural firm in Boston. You lost the right to ask me personal questions when you suggested separation because my pregnant body wasn't aesthetically pleasing enough for your social circle, Natalia continued, her voice never wavering. You chose your image over your family, and I became exactly what I needed to become, someone who doesn't need your approval, your name, or your money. Have you ever been told you weren't good enough by someone who was supposed to love you unconditionally? Have you ever had someone crush your self-worth when you were at your most vulnerable moment? This is exactly what happened to one woman during what should have been the most beautiful time of her life, her pregnancy. But here's what her cruel husband didn't know. Rejection would become her rocket fuel. What he meant to destroy her would actually forge her into something magnificent. Something so powerful that the man who broke her heart would literally crawl back begging for a second chance. Stay with me to discover how a woman who was called disgusting transformed herself into someone so successful that her ex-husband would risk everything just to be in the same room with her again. This is a story of the ultimate transformation and revenge served ice cold. If you believe in the power of rising from the ashes and showing people exactly what they lost, hit that like button and let me know in the comments what you would have done in her situation. But to understand how we got to this moment of pure power and reversal, we need to go back 6 years. Back to when Natalia Rivera was a completely different woman living a completely different life. 6 years earlier, Natalia Rivera Montague stood in the marble foyer of their Beacon Hill mansion, adjusting the clasp of her pearl necklace as she prepared for yet another charity gala. At 25, she was the picture of Boston society perfection. Soft brown hair cascaded over her shoulders, her figure elegant in a way that made other women envious and men protective. Darling, you look absolutely radiant, Adrian said, descending the grand staircase in his custom-made tuxedo. At 31, Adrian Montague was everything a woman could want in a husband. Devastatingly handsome, impossibly wealthy, and heir to a business empire that had been in his family for 4 generations. Thank you. Natalia smiled, the kind of gentle, adoring smile she reserved only for him. I still can't believe we're finally trying for a baby. After 2 years of waiting, I was starting to think it would never happen. Adrian wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her close. Mrs. Montague, you worry too much. When it's meant to be, it will be. And when it happens, our child will be the luckiest baby in Boston. Beautiful mother, successful father, and more money than they could spend in 10 lifetimes. The mansion around them was a testament to that wealth. Venetian chandeliers cast warm light over oil paintings worth more than most people's houses. Italian marble floors reflected their images like mirrors. Every piece of furniture was an antique, every decorative object a treasure. I love you, Adrian Montague, Natalia whispered against his chest. And I love you, Mrs. Montague, more than all the money in the world. If only he had meant it. The early months of their marriage had been a fairy tale. Adrian had courted her with the intensity of a man obsessed, sending flowers to her tiny apartment every day for 6 months, flying her to Paris for weekend getaways, proposing on the beach in Santorini with a ring that had belonged to his great-grandmother. Natalia had been working as a junior architect at a small firm downtown when they met. Adrian had needed someone to design a renovation for one of his office buildings, and she had been assigned to the project. Their first meeting had been electric, instant chemistry that neither could deny. You're not like the other women I usually date, Adrian had told her over dinner at the most expensive restaurant in Boston. What are the other women like? Natalia had asked, genuinely curious. Predictable. Boring. More interested in my bank account than my thoughts. Adrian reached across the table to take her hand. You actually listen when I talk. You challenge my ideas. You make me want to be a better man. And he had been better, at least in the beginning. Attentive, romantic, supportive of her career goals. When they married in a ceremony that made the society pages of every major newspaper, Natalia felt like the luckiest woman alive. But perfection, as Natalia would learn, was often just a beautiful facade hiding something much darker underneath. The first crack in their fairy tale came during a dinner party at the Montague family estate in Newport. Adrian's grandmother, the formidable Margaret Montague, had pulled Natalia aside with the kind of smile that never reached her eyes. You know, dear, Adrian has always been quite particular about appearances, the elderly woman had said, sipping her champagne with practiced elegance. The Montague wives have always understood that we represent more than just ourselves. We represent a legacy. Of course, Mrs. Montague, I understand the responsibility. Do you? Margaret's gaze had traveled over Natalia's figure with clinical assessment. Because maintaining one's figure, one's elegance, one's social graces. These things become even more important once children enter the picture. Adrian's mother, God rest her soul, looked exactly the same after having 3 children as she did on her wedding day. The implication was clear, and it had planted a seed of insecurity that would only grow larger over time. Grandmother can be quite traditional, Adrian had said later when Natalia mentioned the conversation. Don't let her old-fashioned ideas get to you. But the damage was already done. Natalia began noticing things she had never paid attention to before. The way Adrian's eyes lingered on other women at social events. The casual comments about how well certain wives had maintained themselves after childbirth. The subtle but constant pressure to be perfect, beautiful, socially acceptable. Still, when the pregnancy test finally showed 2 pink lines after 2 years of trying, Natalia felt nothing but pure joy. She and Adrian had been trying for so long, consulting specialists, taking fertility treatments, timing everything perfectly. Adrian, she called from their bedroom, her voice shaking with excitement. Adrian, come here. He appeared in the doorway of their marble bathroom, still wearing his work clothes, his tie loosened around his neck. What is it, darling? You sound like you've seen a ghost. Natalia held up the pregnancy test with trembling hands. We're having a baby. For a moment, Adrian's face lit up with genuine happiness. He crossed the room in 3 quick strides, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around. Are you serious? We're really having a baby. We're really having a baby. Natalia laughed, tears streaming down her cheeks. This is incredible. This is perfect. Our baby is going to be so loved, so wanted. Adrian set her down gently, his hands moving to her still flat stomach. Hello in there, little one. This is your daddy speaking. You're going to have the most amazing life. That night, they called everyone they knew. Adrian's father opened a bottle of champagne that had been aging in the family cellar for 50 years. Margaret Montague actually smiled, a rare occurrence that Natalia took as a good omen. Friends and colleagues offered congratulations and began making plans for baby showers and nursery designs. For the first few months, everything was perfect. Adrian doted on Natalia, bringing her ginger tea for morning sickness, reading pregnancy books aloud in the evenings, talking to her belly every night before bed. Our baby is going to be so beautiful, he would whisper, his hand resting on her growing stomach. Just like their mama. But as Natalia's body began to change, so did Adrian's attitude. It started subtly. A comment here and there about how much weight she was gaining. A suggestion that maybe she should exercise more, eat less. Little criticisms disguised as concern for her health. Darling, I'm worried about you, Adrian said one morning as Natalia struggled to zip up a dress that had fit perfectly just weeks before. Dr. Patterson said you're gaining weight faster than average. Dr. Patterson said I'm perfectly healthy, Natalia replied, though she could feel her cheeks burning with embarrassment. Some women gain more weight than others. It's normal. Of course. I just want what's best for you and the baby. But his eyes told a different story. They held disappointment, even disgust, as they traveled over her changing figure. By her 6th month, Natalia had gained 35 pounds. Her face was rounder, her ankles swollen, her breasts larger than they had ever been. She felt beautiful in the way that pregnant women often do, glowing with the life growing inside her. Adrian felt differently. Maybe you should skip the Henderson Gala this weekend, he suggested as Natalia tried on maternity dresses in their walk-in closet. You're looking a bit tired lately. I'm not tired. I'm pregnant. There's a difference. I just think it might be better if you stayed home, rested, took care of yourself. The truth was, Adrian was embarrassed by her appearance. He didn't want to be seen with a wife who no longer fit the image of perfection that was expected of Montague wives. The breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday evening in her 7th month. Natalia stood in their bathroom, looking at herself in the full-length mirror that had once reflected back someone she recognized. Now, she saw a woman who was soft and round and glowing with new life. Beautiful in a different way, but still beautiful. She was admiring the way her belly had grown, marveling at the life moving inside her, when Adrian walked in from his home office. You're disgusting. The words hit her like physical blows. She turned to face her husband, her hands instinctively moving to protect her belly. What did you say? Look at yourself. His voice dripped with revulsion as he gestured at her reflection. This isn't the woman I married. This isn't what I signed up for. Natalia felt her world tilting on its axis. Adrian, I'm pregnant with your baby. A baby I'm no longer sure I want if this is what it does to you. Adrian straightened his tie with casual cruelty, preparing to leave for another business dinner. Another night where he would claim his wife was too tired to attend. Sophia Caldwell looked incredible throughout her entire pregnancy. Even at 9 months, she was still elegant, still beautiful. I'm not Sophia. No, you're not. Sophia understands that being a Montague wife means maintaining certain standards. His gray eyes were cold as winter storms. You've let yourself go completely. The cruelty in his voice was devastating, but what came next was even worse. I've been thinking, Adrian continued, adjusting his cufflinks with the same casual indifference he might use to discuss the weather. Maybe we should consider separation. Temporarily. Until you can fix this. Fix what? Fix being pregnant with your child? Fix whatever this is. He waved dismissively at her body, as if her pregnancy was some kind of personal failing. I can't even stand to look at you anymore, let alone touch you. The words shattered something deep inside Natalia's chest. She stared at this man who had once whispered love poems in her ear, who had promised to cherish her in sickness and in health, who had made her believe she was the most beautiful woman in the world. What are you saying, Adrian? I'm saying that I married a beautiful, elegant woman who understood her role as my wife. I didn't marry someone who would let herself become. He gestured again at her body with undisguised disgust. Pregnant? You didn't marry someone who would become pregnant with your child? I didn't marry someone who would use pregnancy as an excuse to completely abandon any attempt at maintaining her appearance. Natalia felt tears streaming down her cheeks, but she also felt something else. Something harder and colder than the marble floors beneath her feet. So this is what your love looks like. Conditional. Based on whether my body meets your aesthetic standards. This is what marriage looks like in our social circle, Natalia. Image matters. Appearance matters. The way we present ourselves to the world matters. And I'm not presenting well enough for you. You're presenting like someone who's given up. Like someone who doesn't care about being worthy of the Montague name. The baby kicked hard inside her belly, as if sensing her distress. Natalia's hand moved protectively over the movement, and she made a decision that would change everything. Get out. Natalia, I'm trying to help you understand. Get out of this bathroom. Get out of my sight. Don't you dare try to touch me or comfort me or pretend you have any decency left. Adrian straightened his tie one final time. I'll be staying at the club for a few days. Maybe the time apart will help you gain some perspective on what needs to change. Nothing needs to change, Adrian. I'm pregnant. This is what pregnant women look like. This is what women who've given up look like. His voice was matter of fact, as if they were discussing a business transaction. I'll be back when you're ready to discuss this rationally. Don't come back. This is my house, Natalia. Then I'll leave. Perhaps that's for the best. Until you can get yourself together. Natalia watched her husband walk away, his footsteps echoing on the marble floors like the death knell of their marriage. She heard his car start in the driveway, heard him drive away to whatever social engagement was more important than his pregnant wife. That night, She lay alone in their king-sized bed, feeling the baby move restlessly inside her, as if sensing her heartbreak. She stared at the ceiling of their mansion and made a decision that would change the course of her entire life. She wasn't going to fix herself for Adrian Montague. She was going to become someone he could never deserve. The next morning, Natalia called her lawyer and filed for divorce. The proceedings were swift and brutal. Adrian, caught off guard by her sudden action, tried to reconcile at first. "Darling, you're being emotional," he said during their first mediation session. "Pregnancy hormones can make women irrational. Let's wait until after the baby is born to make any permanent decisions." "The only irrational decision I made was believing you actually loved me," Natalia replied, her voice steady despite the pain crushing her chest. "I do love you. I'm trying to help you become the woman you used to be. I am the woman I used to be, plus a baby. Your baby. If you can't love me carrying your child, then you never loved me at all." The divorce was finalized 3 weeks later. Natalia took nothing but her personal belongings and her car. She didn't want his money, didn't want any reminder of the life that had turned out to be a beautiful lie. 2 weeks after signing the papers, Natalia discovered something that would have changed everything if Adrian had been a different kind of man. She was pregnant with twins. But by then, it was too late. Adrian had already moved on, just as she was determined to do. The first year after leaving Adrian was the hardest of Natalia's life. She moved into a tiny one-bedroom apartment in Cambridge, using her savings to cover rent while she looked for work. Being 7 months pregnant made job hunting nearly impossible. Most firms took one look at her obvious condition and found polite ways to decline her applications. "We'd love to have you," one senior partner said with practiced sympathy. "But given your situation, wouldn't you prefer to focus on becoming a mother? Perhaps we could revisit this conversation after your maternity leave." What they meant was, we don't want to hire someone who's about to disappear for months to have a baby. Natalia learned to be creative with her applications, scheduling phone interviews for positions that might not require in-person meetings until after the birth. She took freelance projects that could be completed from home, designing small residential renovations and commercial updates that barely paid enough to cover groceries. At 36 weeks pregnant, she received news that shattered her carefully constructed plans. "Twins," Dr. Martinez said, reviewing the ultrasound images with barely concealed excitement. "I'm seeing 2 distinct heartbeats, 2 separate placentas. Congratulations, Natalia. You're having twins." Natalia stared at the fuzzy black and white images, trying to process what she was seeing. 2 babies. 2 sets of tiny hands and feet and hearts. Double the joy and double the responsibility and double the financial pressure. "Are you sure? All my previous ultrasounds only showed 1 baby." Sometimes twins can hide behind each other, especially early in pregnancy. But there's no doubt now. You're having 2 healthy babies. That night, Natalia sat in her tiny apartment, eating takeout Chinese food and staring at the ultrasound pictures. 2 babies who would grow up without their father. 2 children who would never know the wealth and privilege that should have been their birthright. She thought about calling Adrian, about telling him that the woman he'd thrown away for gaining too much weight was actually carrying 2 of his children. But pride and pain held her back. He had made his choice when he called her disgusting. He had lost the right to know about his children when he chose his image over his family. Mila and Lucas were born on a snowy February morning after 18 hours of labor that nearly killed Natalia. Born 6 weeks early, they spent their first month in the NICU while Natalia recovered from the emergency C-section that had saved all their lives. "They're fighters," the neonatal nurse said, watching Mila grab onto her finger with tiny but determined fists. "Premature babies have to be strong to survive, and these 2 are definitely strong." Lucas was quieter, more contemplative, but equally determined. Even as newborns, their personalities were distinct. Mila was bold and dramatic, making her needs known with impressive lung power. Lucas was gentler, more observant, content to study the world around him with serious dark eyes. Adrian's eyes, Natalia realized with a pang of mixed love and grief. The twins were 3 months old when tragedy struck again. Natalia's mother, the only family she had left, was diagnosed with advanced ovarian cancer. Maria Rivera had been Natalia's rock through the divorce and pregnancy, moving from Chicago to Boston to help with the babies. "Mija, I'm so sorry," Her mother whispered from her hospital bed, her once strong hands now weak and trembling. "I wanted to be here to help you raise them." "Don't talk like that, Mama. You're going to beat this." But they both knew better. The cancer was aggressive and advanced. Maria Rivera died 6 months later, leaving Natalia completely alone with 2 6-month-old babies and a mountain of medical bills. The funeral was small and heartbreaking. Natalia stood at the graveside holding Mila while Lucas slept in his carrier, wondering how she was going to survive without the woman who had been her anchor through every storm. That night, sitting in her apartment with 2 fussy babies and an empty bank account, Natalia made another life-changing decision. She was going to go back to school. Not just any school. She was going to get her master's degree in architecture from MIT, the most prestigious program in the country. She was going to become the kind of architect whose buildings graced magazine covers and city skylines. She was going to build a life so magnificent that no man would ever again have the power to make her feel small. The application process was brutal. Natalia had to take the GRE while juggling 2 babies, write essays while bouncing a crying infant, and request recommendations from professors who barely remembered her from undergraduate school 5 years earlier. But she was accepted. MIT offered her a partial scholarship and a teaching assistantship that would cover her tuition and provide a small stipend. It wasn't much, but it was enough to survive if she was careful. The next 3 years were a blur of 18-hour days and impossible challenges. Natalia would wake up at 5 a.m. to study while the twins slept, attend classes during the day while they were in daycare, and work on projects late into the night after putting them to bed. The daycare costs alone consumed most of her stipend, leaving barely enough for rent and groceries. There were nights when Natalia went to bed hungry, so the twins could have enough formula. There were weeks when she wore the same 3 outfits because she couldn't afford to do laundry. But slowly, gradually, she began to excel. Her professors noticed her talent first. Her designs were innovative, combining classical elegance with cutting-edge sustainability. Her senior project, a mixed-use development that incorporated affordable housing with high-end retail, won the program's top prize and was featured in Architectural Digest. "You have something special," Professor Williams told her during their final meeting. "The vision, the technical skill, the ability to see solutions where others see problems. You're going to change the industry." Natalia graduated summa cum laude with job offers from 3 of the most prestigious firms in Boston. She chose the one that offered the best salary and the most creative freedom, knowing that financial security was the foundation everything else would be built on. The twins were 3 years old when Natalia started her first job as a junior architect at Morrison & Associates. They were bright, beautiful children who had inherited their father's intelligence and their mother's determination. Mila was the artist, always drawing pictures and building elaborate structures out of blocks. Lucas was the engineer, taking apart toys to see how they worked and asking endless questions about how buildings stayed standing. "Mama, why do some buildings have pointy tops and some have flat tops?" Lucas asked one evening as they walked through downtown Boston. "Different shapes serve different purposes," Natalia explained, pointing to various skyscrapers. "Some are designed to cut through wind, some to maximize space, some just to be beautiful. Can you make buildings that are all 3? Mila wanted to know. "That's the goal, sweetheart. To make buildings that are functional and efficient and beautiful all at the same time." "Like you," Lucas said with the matter-of-fact honesty of childhood. Natalia's heart clenched with love for these amazing little people who had never known their father, but who filled her life with more joy than she had ever imagined possible. Work was demanding, but rewarding. Natalia threw herself into every project with the intensity of someone who had everything to prove and everything to lose. She volunteered for the most challenging assignments, worked longer hours than anyone else, and consistently delivered designs that exceeded client expectations. Her reputation grew quickly. Within 2 years, she was promoted to senior architect. Within 4 years, she was leading her own projects and being featured in industry publications. But Natalia wanted more than just success within someone else's firm. She wanted to build something of her own, something that could provide long-term security for her children and creative freedom for herself. Crown & Associates was born on a rainy Tuesday in October, exactly 5 years after her divorce from Adrian. Natalia had saved every penny possible, lived in the same tiny apartment, driven the same used car, bought clothes only when absolutely necessary. The day she signed the lease on her first office, a modest space in downtown Boston with room for 6 employees, Mila and Lucas helped her hang the shiny new sign on the front door. Crown and Associates. Mila read carefully, sounding out each syllable. That's us, right, Mama? We're the associates. You're my most important associates. Natalia laughed, lifting both children so they could touch the bronze lettering. This is our company. Everything I build from now on, I'm building for us. The first year of running her own firm was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Natalia had to be the architect, the business manager, the marketing department, and the accountant all at once. She worked from 5 a.m. until midnight, designing buildings during the day and handling administrative tasks after the twins went to bed. But her reputation brought clients, and her designs brought more clients. Within 2 years, Crown & Associates had 15 employees and a waiting list of projects. Within 4 years, they had 50 employees and were competing for the most prestigious contracts in the city. Natalia herself was transforming along with her business. Gone was the soft, uncertain woman who had once worried about fitting into Boston society. In her place was someone powerful, confident, unshakable. She hired a personal trainer and a nutritionist, sculpting her body into something stronger and more elegant than it had ever been. She learned to dress for power, investing in designer suits and statement jewelry that commanded respect in every boardroom. Her hair, once soft and feminine, was now styled in a sleek bob that framed her face with geometric precision. Her makeup was always flawless, her nails always perfect, her presence always commanding. The twins, now 5 years old, were thriving. Mila had inherited her mother's artistic eye and her father's stubborn determination. Lucas had inherited his father's analytical mind and his mother's empathetic heart. They were brilliant, beautiful children who knew they were loved unconditionally. Mama, why don't I have a daddy like the other kids at school? Mila asked one evening as Natalia tucked her into bed. It was a question Natalia had been dreading and preparing for since the day they were born. Sometimes adults make choices that mean they can't be part of their children's lives, she said carefully. Your daddy wasn't ready to be a parent when you were born. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you or that you're not loved. It just means that some people aren't strong enough to love the way children deserve to be loved. Are you strong enough? Lucas asked from his bed across the room. I'm strong enough to love you both more than anything in the world, Natalia said firmly. You are the best things that ever happened to me, and I will always, always be here for you. What if our daddy changes his mind? Mila wondered. What if he decides he wants to meet us? Then we'll figure that out together, Natalia said, though privately she hoped that day would never come. Adrian had made his choice 6 years ago. He had chosen his image over his family, his social status over his love. She would not let him hurt her children the way he had hurt her. By the time the twins turned 6, Natalia had everything she had ever dreamed of. A successful business that was changing the Boston skyline. A beautiful penthouse apartment overlooking the harbor. Financial security that meant her children would never want for anything. She had also become someone completely different from the woman Adrian had discarded. Where once she had been soft and accommodating, now she was strong and decisive. Where once she had sought approval, now she commanded respect. Where once she had been dependent, now she was completely self-sufficient. The woman who had once cried herself to sleep because her husband called her disgusting was now featured on magazine covers as one of Boston's most influential businesswomen. The woman who had once worried about gaining weight during pregnancy now graced red carpets in designer gowns that showcased a body sculpted by discipline and determination. She was magnificent, powerful, untouchable, and completely unaware that fate was about to bring her face to face with the man who had created this phoenix from the ashes of his own cruelty. I need to pause here because what happens next will absolutely blow your mind. Drop a heart in the comments if you think Adrian deserved what was coming to him. And make sure you're subscribed because you won't want to miss how this story ends. The call came on a Tuesday morning in October, exactly 6 years after Natalia had signed the papers that ended her marriage to Adrian Montague. Ms. Rivera, I have the Montague Group online too, her assistant announced through the intercom. They're requesting a meeting about a major development project. Natalia's hand froze over her coffee cup. She had been expecting this call for months. ever since Crown and Associates had won the contract for the Harrison Complex, the most prestigious mixed-use development in Boston's history. Word traveled fast in the architecture world, and she knew it was only a matter of time before Adrian learned about her success. Did they specify who would be attending the meeting? She asked, proud of how steady her voice sounded. Mr. Adrian Montague himself, along with his development team. They're looking for an architect for something called the Montague Center. 50 floors, mixed use, completely sustainable. The biggest project in the city's history. Of course it was. Adrian had always been ambitious, always needed to have the biggest, the best, the most impressive of everything. It was part of what had attracted her to him in the beginning, and part of what had ultimately destroyed their marriage. Schedule them for Thursday at 3 p.m., Natalia said after a moment. Conference room A. Should I prepare the usual presentation materials? No. I'll handle this one personally. Natalia hung up and leaned back in her leather chair, staring out at the Boston skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office. Somewhere out there, Adrian was probably sitting in his own corner office, having no idea that the woman he had thrown away like garbage was now the most sought-after architect in the city. The woman he had called disgusting was about to become his only hope for the most important project of his career. For 2 days, Natalia prepared for the meeting with the same meticulous attention to detail she brought to all her projects. She researched the Montague Center proposal, studied the proposed location, and developed preliminary ideas for how the project could be approached. But more importantly, she prepared herself emotionally for seeing Adrian again. She chose her outfit carefully. A charcoal gray designer suit that fit her like it had been painted on, showcasing the body she had sculpted through years of discipline and determination. The jacket was tailored to emphasize her narrow waist and strong shoulders. The skirt was just short enough to show off legs that were now toned and elegant rather than swollen with pregnancy. Her hair was styled in a sleek chignon that emphasized the sharp lines of her cheekbones and the elegant length of her neck. Her makeup was flawless but subtle, enhancing her natural beauty rather than hiding behind artifice. The jewelry was the finishing touch. Diamond earrings that caught the light with every movement. A vintage Cartier watch that had belonged to her grandmother. A necklace with a single emerald pendant that rested just below her collarbone, drawing attention to the graceful line of her throat. She looked powerful, successful, utterly untouchable. Thursday afternoon arrived with gray skies and driving rain that hammered against the windows of Crown and Associates. Natalia stood in her office, reviewing the contract one final time, when her assistant's voice came through the intercom. Ms. Rivera, your 3 p.m. appointment is here. Natalia's breath caught as she heard a familiar voice in the background. Deep, commanding, achingly familiar despite the years that had passed. Send them in. The door opened, and her past walked into her future. Adrian Montague looked older, but no less imposing. Silver now threaded through his dark hair, and lines had appeared around his eyes, but he still carried himself with the confidence of a man who had never been told no. His suit was perfectly tailored, his tie precisely knotted, his presence as commanding as ever. Behind him walked a petite blonde who couldn't have been older than 25. She was beautiful in the way that young women often were, all fresh skin and bright eyes and unconscious confidence. Her arm was linked possessively through Adrian's, and she wore the kind of designer outfit that screamed old money and new privilege. Natalia? Adrian's voice cracked with disbelief as he stopped dead in the doorway. My God, you're stunning. And she was. The soft, uncertain woman he had discarded had been replaced by someone carved from ambition and polished by success. Her curves were deliberate now, showcased by couture that cost more than most people's cars. Her dark hair fell in glossy waves past her shoulders, and her green eyes held the kind of power that made billionaires nervous. Mr. Montague. Her voice was silk over steel, giving away nothing of the emotions churning beneath her professional facade. I understand you need an architect. Adrian stared across the conference table, his mind reeling from the revelation that had just shattered his world. The woman sitting before him wasn't just any architect. She was the wife he had thrown away like garbage 6 years ago. The same wife he had called disgusting for gaining weight during pregnancy. And now she commanded the most prestigious architectural firm in the city. I need to ask you something personal, Adrian said, his voice barely above a whisper. This is a business meeting, Mr. Montague. Natalia's tone remained professionally cold, but Adrian caught the slight tightening around her eyes. Did you name her after your grandmother? The question hit like a sucker punch. Natalia's composure cracked for just a fraction of a second before she regained control. I'm sorry, your daughter, Mila. I saw the photo in Architectural Digest when you were accepting the Designer of the Year award. She was in the audience, clapping for you. She has your eyes, but... His voice dropped to barely audible. She has my smile. The blonde beside him, Celeste, gasped audibly. Adrian, what are you saying? Natalia stood slowly, her movements sharp with barely controlled fury. My daughter is none of your concern. She's 5 years old, isn't she? Born about 9 months after you left Boston. Adrian's voice grew more urgent as the pieces fell into place. Natalia, please. I need to know. Is she mine? The words hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Celeste stared between them with growing horror, while Natalia felt 6 years of carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. What you need, Mr. Montague, is to leave my office. Not until you answer me. Natalia's laugh was bitter and sharp as broken glass. You want an answer? Here it is. You lost the right to ask that question when you called me disgusting for carrying your child. You lost it when you suggested separation because my pregnant body wasn't aesthetically pleasing enough for your social circle. Adrian's face went white as the blood drained from his cheeks. You were pregnant when you left. I was pregnant when you destroyed our marriage. I was pregnant when you made me feel like a failure for gaining weight while growing your child. I was pregnant when you decided I wasn't worthy of being a Montague wife. My God, Natalia, what have I done? You did exactly what you wanted to do. You chose your image over your family, and I became exactly what I needed to become. Someone who doesn't need your approval, your name, or your money. Celeste finally found her voice. Adrian, I don't understand what's happening here. What's happening? Natalia said, turning her cold gaze to the younger woman. Is that your boyfriend is learning that actions have consequences. That the woman he threw away for being imperfect built something magnificent from the ashes of his cruelty. Adrian leaned forward, his hands shaking slightly. Natalia, if she's mine, if I have a daughter, please. I need to know her. I need to try to make this right. Make it right. Natalia's voice rose for the first time, raw emotion breaking through her professional facade. You can't make it right, Adrian. You can't take back calling me disgusting when I was carrying your child. You can't take back suggesting I was too ugly to be seen with. You can't take back 6 years of birthdays and Christmas mornings and first steps and first words. I know I can't take it back, but I can try to be better. I can try to be the father she deserves. The father she deserves would have been there from the beginning. The father she deserves would have loved her mother enough to support her through pregnancy instead of abandoning her for gaining weight. Celeste stood abruptly, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. Adrian, are you telling me you have a secret child with your ex-wife? I didn't know, Adrian said, not taking his eyes off Natalia. I swear I didn't know. But you suspected, Natalia said quietly. You saw her photo and you knew. Those are your eyes looking back at you, aren't they? Your stubborn chin, your analytical mind. She's brilliant, Adrian. Absolutely brilliant. And she's grown up just fine without knowing her father exists. What have you told her about me? I told her that her father wasn't ready to be a parent when she was born. That sometimes people make choices they can't take back. Natalia moved to the window, looking out at the city below. I never badmouthed you to her. I never told her that you called me disgusting or that you chose your social image over your family. I protected you even when you didn't deserve it. Thank you, Adrian whispered. I didn't do it for you. I did it for her. Children shouldn't have to carry the weight of their parents' failures. Celeste gathered her designer purse with sharp, angry movements. This is insane. Adrian, we have a relationship. We have plans. You can't just discover you have some secret child and turn our lives upside down. Our lives. Natalia turned back to face them, her eyebrows raised in elegant disdain. Your lives haven't been turned upside down. My daughter's life is exactly the same as it was this morning. Secure, loved, protected. The only thing that's changed is that her absent father now knows she exists. Adrian, tell her this doesn't change anything between us, Celeste demanded. Adrian was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. When he finally looked up, his eyes were filled with an emotion Natalia hadn't seen in years. Genuine regret. I think you should go, Celeste. What? I need to handle this alone. This is about my daughter, and you're not part of that equation. Celeste's mouth fell open in shock. Are you dismissing me? After everything we've built together? We haven't built anything together, Adrian said quietly. We've been playing house while real life happened around us. I have a daughter I've never met, and that changes everything. This is ridiculous. You're going to throw away our relationship for some woman who's obviously been lying to you for years. She wasn't lying, Adrian said, his voice growing stronger. She was protecting her child from a man who wasn't worthy of being called a father. A man who chose appearances over love. A man who was too shallow and cruel to deserve a family. Celeste stormed toward the door, her heels clicking angrily on the marble floor. Don't call me when you come to your senses and realize what a mistake you're making. The door slammed behind her, leaving Adrian and Natalia alone for the first time in 6 years. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words and unmade choices. Finally, Adrian spoke. Can I see her? Please. Just once. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm begging you. Natalia studied his face, looking for any trace of the manipulative charm that had once swept her off her feet. Instead, she saw raw honesty and desperate regret. Why? So you can decide if she's worth disrupting your perfect life? So you can evaluate whether she meets your standards for a Montague child? So I can apologize to her for not being there. So I can tell her that her father was a coward who made the worst mistake of his life. So I can maybe, somehow, try to earn a place in her world. She doesn't know you exist, Adrian. To her, you're just some man her mother knew once upon a time. I've built her a life where she feels complete and loved and secure. Why would I risk damaging that for your peace of mind? Because maybe she deserves to know where she comes from. Maybe she deserves to have a father who's finally ready to love her the way she should have been loved from the beginning. Natalia was quiet for a long time, remembering the questions Mila had started asking about her father. The innocent curiosity about why some children had daddies and others didn't. The carefully neutral way she spoke about family structures at school, as if she was protecting her mother's feelings. She asks about you sometimes, Natalia admitted quietly. Adrian's breath caught. What does she ask? Why she doesn't have a daddy like the other kids? Whether you'll ever want to meet her? Whether there's something wrong with her that made you not want to be her father? Natalia's voice broke slightly on the last words. Jesus Christ. There's nothing wrong with her. There's everything wrong with me. I know that. You know that. But she's 5 years old, Adrian. 5-year-olds think everything is their fault. Let me meet her. Let me tell her that none of this is her fault. That her father was just too stupid and shallow to recognize the gift he was being given. And what happens after that? You meet her once, ease your conscience, and then disappear back to your perfect life? You think that's better for her than never knowing you at all? I wouldn't disappear. I want to be part of her life. Really part of it. Not just some stranger who shows up occasionally with expensive gifts. What about your social circle? Your family? Your precious reputation? How are you going to explain to Boston society that you have a 5-year-old daughter you've never acknowledged? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. I don't care about any of that anymore. I care about making this right. You can't make it right, Adrian. The best you can do is try not to make it worse. Then let me try? Please. Give me a chance to prove I've changed. Natalia moved back to her desk, sinking into her chair as the weight of the decision pressed down on her. Everything in her wanted to protect Mila from potential disappointment. But another part of her, the part that remembered being a little girl who wondered about her own absent father, understood the questions that would only grow larger as Mila got older. If I allow this, there are conditions. Adrian straightened, hope flickering in his eyes. Anything. One meeting. Supervised. In public. You don't tell her who you are unless I decide she's ready to hear it. Agreed. You don't make promises you can't keep. You don't build up her hopes just to disappoint her later. You don't use her to try to manipulate me into anything. I understand. And Adrian, if you hurt her in any way, if you make her feel unwanted or disappointing or less than perfect, I will make sure you never see her again. Do you understand me? The steel in Natalia's voice left no room for doubt. This was not the soft, accommodating woman he had once been married to. This was a mother protecting her child, and she would destroy him without hesitation if he threatened what she had built. I understand. Thank you, Natalia. Thank you for giving me a chance I don't deserve. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for her. She deserves to know where she comes from, even if where she comes from is disappointing. That evening, Natalia sat in her penthouse apartment overlooking Boston Harbor, a glass of wine in her hand, and her 5-year-old daughter curled against her side. Mila was working on a drawing, her little tongue poking out in concentration as she carefully colored inside the lines. "Mama, why were you sad when you came home today?" Children always knew, Natalia reflected. No matter how carefully adults tried to hide their emotions, children could sense the undercurrents of feeling that flowed beneath the surface. "Sometimes work brings up complicated feelings, baby. Was it the man with the sad eyes?" Natalia's hand stilled on her wine glass. "Sad eyes? In your office today? I saw him when Mrs. Peterson brought me upstairs to give you my drawing. He looked at you like Prince Beast looked at Belle when he thought she didn't love him back." Out of the mouths of babes. Mila had inherited her father's perceptiveness along with his stubborn chin and gray eyes. "You're too smart for your own good. Grandma Rosa always said I get that from you." Mila snuggled closer, her warm little body fitting perfectly against Natalia's side. "Are we going to help him build his building?" "I don't know yet, sweetheart. I think we should. He looked like he needed us." "What makes you say that?" "Because when people look that sad, it means they lost something important and they don't know how to get it back." Natalia stared at her daughter in amazement. At 5 years old, Mila had already developed the kind of emotional intelligence that many adults never achieved. She could read people's feelings in their expressions, their body language, the space between their words. What do you think he lost? Maybe his family, or maybe his happiness. Sometimes grown-ups lose their happiness and forget how to find it again. And you think we could help him find it? Maybe. You're really good at fixing things, Mama. You fix buildings and you fixed us when I was sad about not having a daddy. Natalia's heart clenched. What did I say that fixed you? You said that love isn't about how many people you have. It's about how much love you give. And you give me and Lucas enough love for a whole family. That's right, baby. Love multiplies, it doesn't divide. So maybe the sad man needs someone to teach him about love multiplying. Later that night, after Mila was asleep, Natalia stood on her balcony looking out at the lights of the city. Somewhere out there, Adrian was probably lying awake thinking about the daughter he had never known existed. Somewhere out there, he was finally understanding the magnitude of what he had thrown away. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, though she knew immediately who it was. "I can't stop thinking about her. About what I've missed. About what an idiot I was to throw away the best thing that ever happened to me. Can we talk? Please. Adrian." Natalia stared at the message for a long time before deleting it without responding. Words were easy. Adrian had always been good with words, charming and persuasive, and able to make people believe whatever he wanted them to believe. If he wanted a chance to know his daughter, he would have to prove himself through actions, not words. The next morning brought another text. "I've been thinking about what you said. About earning the right to know her. Tell me how. Tell me what I need to do to prove I've changed." And another that afternoon. "I looked up your interview in Boston Magazine. The one where you talked about building Crown and Associates while raising twins as a single mother. Twins, Natalia. You were pregnant with twins when I called you disgusting. I can't live with myself." And another that evening. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to maybe, someday, earn the right to call myself her father." Natalia deleted each message without responding, but she couldn't deny that his persistence was having an effect. Not because she was falling for his charm again, but because she could hear something different in his words. Something desperate and real that she had never heard from him before. On the third day, instead of a text, Adrian appeared in her office lobby at 6 in the morning, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "The doorman won't let me up," he said when she finally answered her phone. "Good. He's following instructions. Natalia, please. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking for." She studied his haggard face through the security monitor. He looked broken in a way that would have devastated her 6 years ago. Now it just made her tired. 5 minutes. In the lobby. Say what you need to say. When she emerged from the elevator 10 minutes later, dressed for her morning run in designer athletic, where that showcased the body she had sculpted from discipline and determination, Adrian's breath caught audibly. Gone was any trace of the soft, uncertain woman he had discarded. In her place stood someone carved from ambition and polished by success. Her curves were deliberate now, enhanced by workout clothes that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Her dark hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail, and her green eyes held the kind of power that made billionaires nervous. "You're killing me," he whispered. "Good. Now talk." "I was wrong. About everything. About you, about what mattered, about what kind of man I wanted to be." His voice cracked with emotion. "I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was a shallow, cruel boy who cared more about appearances than love." "Yes, you were. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I have no right to ask for anything from you. But please, let me know my daughter. Let me try to be the father she deserves." Natalia felt something dangerous stirring in her chest. Not love, not yet, but something that might grow into forgiveness given time and proof. "She doesn't know about you. I figured as much." "What have you told her?" "That her father wasn't ready to be a parent when she was born. That sometimes people make choices they can't take back." "I want to take it back. All of it. I want to take back every cruel word. Every moment I made you feel less than perfect. Every day I've missed watching her grow up." "You can't. That's the point of consequences, Adrian. They're permanent. Then let me earn the chance to make new choices. Better ones." Natalia studied his face, looking for the manipulative charm that had once swept her off her feet. Instead, she saw raw honesty and genuine regret. "What about Celeste?" "There is no Celeste. There's never been anyone who mattered since you left. You moved on pretty quickly for someone who was heartbroken. I tried to move on. I dated dozens of women who looked perfect on my arm and felt like cardboard in my bed. None of them were you." The admission hung between them, loaded with possibility and danger. "I need time to think." "Take all the time you need. I'll wait." "What if I decide the answer is no?" "Then I'll respect that decision and find another architect for my project." "But I'll still wait, Natalia. I'll wait until you're ready to let me prove I've changed. And if that day never comes, then I'll spend the rest of my life knowing that I had everything I ever wanted and I threw it away because I was too stupid to recognize love when it was staring me in the face." Can you imagine the conversation that's about to happen between Natalia and her daughter? Comment Destiny if you think this meeting was meant to happen all along. 2 weeks later, Natalia found herself sitting in the parking lot of the Boston Children's Museum, her hands gripping the steering wheel as she watched Adrian pace nervously beside his car. She had finally agreed to let him meet Mila, but only under strict conditions. 1 hour, in public, with Natalia present the entire time. "Are you ready for this, sweetheart?" she asked, turning to look at Mila in the back seat. "Is he nice?" Mila asked, studying Adrian through the window with the serious concentration she brought to everything important. "I think he's trying to be nice. But if you don't like him, or if you want to leave at any time, you just tell me, okay?" "Okay, Mama. But I think he looks lonely." Natalia's heart clenched at her daughter's innate empathy. Even at 5 years old, Mila had an ability to see past surface appearances to the emotions underneath. They approached Adrian slowly, Mila's small hand tucked securely in Natalia's. He looked nervous in a way Natalia had never seen before, like a man about to take the most important test of his life. "Mila, this is Mr. Montague. He's someone Mama knew a long time ago, and he wanted to meet you." "Hello," Adrian said, his voice slightly rough with emotion. "It's very nice to meet you, Mila." "Hello, Mr. Montague. You have sad eyes, but they're the same color as mine." Adrian's breath caught as he looked into his daughter's face for the first time. She was beautiful in a way that made his chest tight with pride and regret. She had Natalia's bone structure and artistic temperament, but those were definitely his eyes looking back at him. His stubborn chin. His analytical way of studying the world. "You're right," he said carefully. "We do have the same color eyes. Are you related to me?" Mila asked with the directness of childhood. Adrian looked at Natalia, who nodded slightly. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm your father." Mila considered this information with the seriousness she brought to all important discoveries. "The one who wasn't ready to be a parent?" "That's right. I made some very bad choices when you were born, and I missed the chance to watch you grow up." "Why weren't you ready?" "Because I was scared and stupid, and I didn't understand what was really important in life." "And now you do?" "Now I know that the most important thing in life is love. And I love you very much, even though I haven't been here to show you that." Mila studied his face with the intensity of an artist examining a subject. "Mama says love is about choosing to put someone else's happiness before your own. Your mama is very wise." She's the best mama in the world. She reads me stories and helps me with my art and makes pancakes that look like butterflies. That sounds wonderful. What kind of art do you like to make? I like to paint feelings. Like, if happiness was a color, it would be yellow like sunshine. And if sadness was a color, it would be blue like rain. Adrian stared at his daughter in amazement. At 5 years old, she was already showing the kind of creative intelligence that most people never developed. That's incredibly creative. What color would love be? Love would be all the colors mixed together, because love has all the feelings inside it. Happy love and worried love and angry love and proud love. What about sorry love? Mila tilted her head, considering. Sorry love would be purple, because purple is red and blue mixed together, and red is angry and blue is sad. But when you mix them together, they make something beautiful. Adrian felt tears threatening as he listened to his daughter's profound 5-year-old wisdom. This amazing little person had grown up without him, and yet she understood emotions and relationships better than most adults. Would you like to go inside and see the exhibits? He asked. Can we see the butterfly garden? I'm learning about metamorphosis in school. Metamorphosis? When something changes into something completely different, like caterpillars turning into butterflies. As they walked through the museum together, Adrian marveled at his daughter's curiosity and intelligence. She asked thoughtful questions about everything they saw, made connections between different exhibits, and explained complex concepts with the clarity of someone who genuinely understood them. Did you know that butterflies remember being caterpillars? Mila said as they stood in the butterfly conservatory, watching dozens of colorful wings flutter around them. I didn't know that. My teacher says they keep all their memories, even though their bodies change completely. So there's still the same butterfly inside, just in a different form. That's amazing. Do you think people can have metamorphosis too? I think so. I think people can change into better versions of themselves if they really want to. Adrian felt the weight of her innocent wisdom. Do you think your daddy could have metamorphosis? Mila looked up at him seriously. I think you're already starting to. You have sorry love in your eyes, but you also have hope love. And hope love is gold like sunrise. They spent the next hour exploring the museum together. Adrian helped Mila build an elaborate tower in the construction zone, listened to her explain the water cycle display, and watched her create a story about brave animals who saved their forest home. You're very smart, he told her as they sat on a bench sharing the apple slices Natalia had packed. Mama says intelligence is a gift, but kindness is a choice. And choices are more important than gifts. Your mama is right about that too. Are you going to keep choosing to be my daddy, or are you going to change your mind? The question hit Adrian like a physical blow. What do you mean? Sometimes grown-ups change their minds about things when they get hard or complicated. I want to know if you're going to keep choosing me even when it's not easy. Adrian knelt down, so he was at her eye level. Mila, I promise you that I will never change my mind about being your father. I may not have been here for your first 5 years, but I want to be here for everything that comes next. Every birthday, every Christmas, every scraped knee, every art show, every moment you'll let me be part of. Even if I'm not perfect, especially then. Love isn't about being perfect, sweetheart. Love is about being loved exactly as you are. Mama said the same thing when I was worried about not having a daddy like the other kids. What did she tell you? She said that families come in all different shapes and sizes, but they're all made of the same thing. Love that chooses to stay even when things get hard. As they prepared to leave, Mila surprised Adrian by giving him a spontaneous hug. Thank you for coming to meet me, she said seriously. I like you. You listen to me like I'm a real person, not just a little kid. Thank you for giving me a chance, sweetheart. You're the most amazing person I've ever met. Can I see you again? Adrian looked at Natalia, who had been watching their interaction with a mixture of surprise and cautious approval. That's up to your mama. Mama, can he come to dinner sometime? I want to show him my paintings, and maybe he could read me a bedtime story. Natalia felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crack as she watched her daughter's face light up with genuine happiness. We'll see, baby. Let's take things slowly. As they walked to their cars, Mila skipped between them, chattering about all the things she wanted to show Adrian and all the questions she still had about butterflies and metamorphosis and whether caterpillars ever got scared about changing into something new. She's incredible, Adrian said quietly to Natalia. Absolutely incredible. She is. And Adrian, she likes you. That doesn't happen often. Mila is very particular about people. I meant what I said. About wanting to be part of her life. Really part of it. Actions speak louder than words. Show me, don't tell me. Over the next 3 months, Adrian did exactly that. He showed up for every scheduled visit, always on time, always prepared to engage with whatever Mila wanted to share. He attended her kindergarten art show, where her emotional landscape paintings amazed everyone who saw them. He took her to the Science Museum to learn about space and planets. He sat through a 2-hour ballet recital where she played a flower in the spring pageant. More importantly, he was consistent. When he promised to call, he called. When he said he would be somewhere, he was there. When Mila asked him questions, he answered them honestly and thoughtfully. Slowly, carefully, they began to build a relationship. Daddy Adrian, Mila said one evening as he helped her with a particularly challenging puzzle. Why didn't you want to be my daddy when I was little? Adrian set down the puzzle piece he was holding and looked at this amazing little person who had every right to hate him, but instead called him Daddy Adrian with such casual affection. It wasn't that I didn't want to be your daddy, sweetheart. It was that I was scared and confused, and I made terrible choices. I was worried about all the wrong things instead of focusing on what really mattered. What were you worried about? Silly things. What other people would think. Whether I was good enough to be a father. Whether I knew how to love someone as perfectly as you deserve to be loved. And now you're not scared anymore. Oh, I'm still scared sometimes. Being a parent is scary because you love your child so much that you want to protect them from everything bad in the world. But I learned that being scared isn't a good reason to run away from love. Mama says brave people feel scared too, but they choose to do the right thing anyway. Your mama is very smart about a lot of things. Do you love mama too? The question caught Adrian off guard. What do you think? I think you do. You look at her the same way Prince Eric looks at Ariel. Like she's the most beautiful person in the whole world. She is the most beautiful person in the whole world. Then why don't you tell her? It's complicated, sweetheart. Grown-up feelings are sometimes more complicated than kid feelings. I don't think so. I think grown-ups just make them complicated because they're scared of being hurt. Once again, Adrian was amazed by his daughter's wisdom. At 5 years old, she understood relationships better than most adults. You might be right about that. I think you should tell her. I think she might love you too, but she's scared because you hurt her feelings before. What makes you think that? Because she gets sad sometimes when she thinks I'm not looking. And she always listens extra carefully when I tell her about our visits. And she kept all the flowers you sent her even though she said she was going to throw them away. Adrian's heart skipped. She kept the flowers? They're in her bedroom in a blue vase. She thinks I don't know, but I saw them when I was looking for my book. That evening, as Adrian walked Natalia to her car after another successful visit, he found the courage to address what was growing between them. Thank you, he said simply. For what? For giving me the chance to know her. For raising her to be so incredible. For protecting her from my mistakes while still letting her have a father. She deserves to know where she comes from, even if where she comes from is complicated. Natalia, can I ask you something? What? Is there any chance that someday you might be able to forgive me? Not for my sake, but for hers. So she can have parents who actually love each other instead of parents who are just trying to coexist peacefully. Natalia was quiet for a long moment, studying his face in the dim parking lot lights. Are you saying you love me? I'm saying I never stopped loving you. I'm saying that seeing you again, seeing what you've become, seeing our daughter, it's made me realize that I threw away the only real love I've ever known. Love isn't enough, Adrian. You taught me that. You're right. Love isn't enough. But love plus respect, plus admiration, plus the willingness to put you and Mila first in everything. Maybe that's enough. Maybe isn't good enough when it comes to my daughter's emotional security. Then let me prove it's more than maybe. Let me show you that I've changed. That I understand what really matters now. How? However you want me to. Whatever it takes. Natalia looked at this man who had once called her disgusting and was now looking at her like she hung the moon and stars. The man who had thrown her away for gaining weight during pregnancy and was now begging for a chance to prove he'd changed. I need more time. Take all the time you need. I'll wait. And if I decide that co-parenting is the best I can offer, then I'll accept that and be grateful for whatever place you'll let me have in both your lives. 3 months later, on a crisp October morning, Natalia stood in her kitchen making pancakes shaped like butterflies while Mila sat at the counter working on her latest masterpiece. It was a painting of their family, she had explained, showing all the different kinds of love in different colors. Daddy Adrian is coming for breakfast, Mila announced, adding another careful brushstroke to her painting. I know, sweetheart. Are you excited? Yes, but I'm also nervous. Why are you nervous? Because I want to ask him something important, but I don't know if I should. What do you want to ask him? Mila set down her paintbrush and looked at her mother with serious 5-year-old eyes. I want to ask him to marry you. Natalia's hand stilled on the pancake batter. Mila, sweetheart, that's not how marriage works. Why not? You love each other, and we love being a family together, and love is supposed to choose to stay even when things get complicated. How do you know I love him? Because you smile different when he's here, and you kept the flowers he sent you. And last night when you thought I was asleep, I heard you talking to Grandma Rosa's picture, and you said you didn't know what to do because your heart wanted to trust him, but your brain was scared of being hurt again. Natalia sank into the chair beside her daughter, amazed once again by the child's perceptiveness. You're right. I do love him. But loving someone who hurt you before is scary. Daddy Adrian isn't the same person who hurt you before. He had metamorphosis, like the butterflies. He's still the same person inside, but he changed into a better version of himself. How can you be so sure? Because when people have real metamorphosis, they don't just look different on the outside. They feel different on the inside too. And Daddy Adrian feels different now. He feels like love that wants to stay. Before Natalia could respond, the doorbell rang. Adrian stood on her doorstep holding a bouquet of white orchids and looking nervous in a way that reminded her of their first date all those years ago. Good morning, he said, his eyes drinking in the sight of her in jeans and a sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders, looking more beautiful than any woman had a right to look while making breakfast. Good morning. Come in. Mila has something she wants to talk to you about. Adrian followed Natalia into the kitchen, where Mila was putting the finishing touches on her painting. She looked up as he entered, her expression serious and determined. Daddy Adrian, I need to ask you something. What is it, sweetheart? Do you want to marry Mama and be a real family? Adrian's eyes flew to Natalia's face, searching for any sign of how she wanted him to respond. She looked surprised but not upset, curious about what he would say. More than anything in the world, he said honestly. But that's not my decision to make alone. It's Mama's decision too, right? That's right. And if she said yes, you would be happy? I would be the happiest man alive. And you would love us forever and always, even when we get old and wrinkled? Especially then. Mila nodded solemnly, as if his answers had passed some internal test. She climbed down from her chair and walked over to Natalia. Mama, I think you should say yes. Mila, sweetheart, marriage is very complicated. It's not just about love. What else is it about? Trust, commitment, being partners in everything, choosing each other every single day, even when it's hard. Daddy Adrian does all those things already. He chooses us every day when he comes to visit. He's committed to being my daddy even when I'm cranky or difficult. And you trust him enough to let him be alone with me sometimes. Out of the mouths of babes, Natalia thought. Her 5-year-old daughter had just summarized the foundation of a good marriage more clearly than most relationship experts. Can I show you my painting? Mila asked, taking Adrian's hand and leading him to her artwork. The painting showed 3 figures standing under a rainbow sky. A woman with dark hair, a man with gray eyes, and a little girl between them holding both their hands. But what made the painting special were the colors flowing between the figures, representing all the different types of love that connected them. This is us, Mila explained. See, the yellow is happy love, and the red is protective love, and the blue is caring love, and the purple is sorry love that turned into forgiveness love. It's beautiful, sweetheart. You're a real artist. I want to hang it in our kitchen so we can see it every day. But first, I want you to ask Mama to marry you properly, like in the movies. Adrian laughed, a sound of pure joy and amazement. You want me to propose right now? Yes, because I want us to be a real family, and Mama is scared to say what she really wants because she doesn't want to get hurt again. Adrian looked at Natalia, seeing the truth of their daughter's words in her eyes. She didn't want this. She was just afraid to admit it. Mila's right, isn't she? He said softly. You're scared. Terrified, Natalia admitted. You destroyed me once, Adrian. I don't know if I could survive it again. You wouldn't have to survive it again because I would never do it again. I was a different person then, someone who didn't understand what real love looked like. But I understand now. How can you be sure? Because real love isn't about what someone can give you or how they make you look to other people. Real love is about choosing someone's happiness over your own comfort. Real love is about seeing someone at their most vulnerable and loving them more, not less. Adrian moved to stand in front of Natalia, taking her hands in his. I saw you at your most vulnerable when you were pregnant with our daughter, and instead of loving you more, I let my own insecurities and shallow priorities make me cruel. I will regret that for the rest of my life. But I've learned from it. I've changed because of it. People don't change that much, Adrian. They do when they lose everything that matters. They do when they spend 6 years knowing they threw away the best thing that ever happened to them. They do when they meet their incredible daughter and realize what real love looks like. Mila moved to stand beside them, looking up at both her parents with hopeful eyes. I love you, Natalia Rivera, Adrian said, his voice strong and sure. I love your strength and your intelligence and your artistic soul. I love the way you rebuilt your life from nothing and created something magnificent. I love the way you protected our daughter while still giving her the chance to know her father. I love your stubborn independence and your fierce protectiveness and the way you make pancakes shaped like butterflies. Natalia felt tears streaming down her cheeks as she listened to words she had never thought she would hear again. But most of all, Adrian continued, I love the way you love. Completely, protectively, unconditionally. The way you love Mila. The way you loved me even when I didn't deserve it. The way you've built a life based on love instead of fear. He dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Will you marry me? Not because it makes social sense or because it's what's expected, but because I love you more than my next breath, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of the gift of your love. The ring he pulled from the box was nothing like the ostentatious diamond he had given her the first time. This was elegant, understated, a vintage emerald surrounded by diamonds that caught the morning light like captured stars. It was my grandmother's, he said quietly. The one who said all those terrible things about maintaining appearances. But before she died, she told me that the most beautiful thing about that ring wasn't the stones. It was the love story it represented. 50 years of choosing each other every single day. Natalia looked down at this man who had once called her disgusting and was now declaring his love on her kitchen floor while their daughter watched with eager anticipation. What about your social circle? Your family? Your precious reputation? I don't care about any of that anymore. All I care about is you and Mila and building a life based on what actually matters. What if I gain weight again? What if I get old and wrinkled and don't look like a magazine cover anymore? Then I'll love you more, not less. Because real beauty comes from living a life full of love and purpose and joy. You're more beautiful now than you were when we first married because you're stronger, more confident, more completely yourself. What if I have another baby and my body changes again? Then I'll worship every change as evidence of the miracle you're creating. I'll rub your feet when they're swollen and bring you ice cream when you're craving it, and tell you every day how amazing you are. Mila bounced impatiently beside them. Mama, just say yes. He loves us, and we love him, and love is supposed to choose to stay. Natalia looked at her daughter's eager face, then at Adrian's hopeful eyes, and finally at her own heart, which was singing with the joy of being truly loved for exactly who she was. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Adrian's voice cracked with disbelief. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll choose you every day. Yes, I'll trust you with our family's happiness. Adrian slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, then stood and kissed her with 6 years of regret and hope and love poured between them. Finally, Mila cheered, throwing her arms around both their legs. Now we're really a real family. The wedding took place 6 months later in Natalia's garden, surrounded by friends and colleagues who had supported her through her journey from broken wife to successful businesswoman to bride again. Mila served as maid of honor, carrying a bouquet of butterflies made from tissue paper and wire. Her speech during the reception brought tears to every eye in the house. My mama taught me that love is like art, she said, standing on a chair so everyone could see her. You have to be brave enough to try new colors and new shapes, even if you're scared they won't turn out perfect. And my daddy taught me that sometimes you have to paint over your mistakes before you can create something beautiful. Adrian's speech was equally moving. 6 years ago, I threw away the most precious gift I had ever been given because I was too shallow and scared to recognize love when it was staring me in the face. Natalia took that rejection and used it as fuel to become someone even more magnificent than I had ever imagined. She raised our daughter to be brilliant and kind and wise. She built a business that changes skylines and changes lives. She became someone who didn't need my approval or validation. He paused, looking at his bride with eyes full of wonder. And somehow, miraculously, she chose to give me another chance. Not because she needed me, but because she wanted to build something beautiful together. Today, I'm not just marrying the woman I love. I'm marrying my partner, my equal, my best friend, and the mother of the most amazing child in the world. As they danced to their first song as husband and wife again, Natalia marveled at how different this felt from their first wedding. Then, she had been marrying someone she thought she knew, someone who had swept her off her feet with charm and romance and grand gestures. Now, she was marrying someone she knew completely, someone who had seen her at her absolute worst and loved her anyway, someone who had been tested by real life and chosen love over convenience, substance over appearance, family over status. Any regrets? Adrian asked as they swayed together under the string lights Mila had insisted on for ambience. Only one. What's that? That it took us 6 years to figure out what really mattered. Maybe we needed those 6 years. Maybe we needed to become the people we are now before we could build something that would last. Maybe. But I'm grateful for every day from now on. Even when I'm old and gray and can't remember where I put my keys. Especially then. I plan to love you through all your metamorphoses, Adrian Montague. As the evening continued, Natalia found herself watching their guests and marveling at how much had changed. Adrian's family, once so concerned with social status and appearances, had embraced Mila completely. His grandmother, now in her 80s, had spent most of the reception teaching her great-granddaughter about the family history and showing her photos of ancestors who shared her artistic temperament. "She has your great-great-grandmother's eyes," Margaret Montague had said, studying Mila's face with genuine affection. "And your stubborn streak, Adrian. She's going to be a force to be reckoned with." "She already is," Adrian had replied proudly. Natalia's colleagues from Crown and Associates mingled easily with Adrian's business associates, the conversation flowing between architecture and technology and the future of sustainable development. It was a merging of two worlds that had once seemed incompatible but now felt perfectly natural. "Mama, are you happy?" Mila asked, appearing at Natalia's side with frosting on her nose and flowers in her hair. "I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life, sweetheart." "Good. Because you deserve to be happy. You deserve someone who loves you like Daddy Adrian loves you." "How does Daddy Adrian love me?" "Like you're magic. Like you're the most important person in the whole universe. Like he can't believe he's lucky enough to be your husband." Natalia swept her daughter into her arms, spinning her around as Mila giggled with delight. "You know what, baby? You're magic too. You're the magic that brought us all together. I didn't bring you together. You and Daddy Adrian were together before I was born. But you taught us what real love looks like. You showed us that love isn't about being perfect or meeting someone else's expectations. Love is about choosing each other every single day, even when it's hard. And you're going to keep choosing each other forever? Forever and always, sweetheart. That's what families do." As the evening wound down and the last guests departed, Adrian and Natalia sat on their back porch swing with Mila curled between them, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. "Tell me the story about the butterfly again," Mila requested sleepily. "Once upon a time," Natalia began, "there was a caterpillar who thought she was broken because she didn't look like the other caterpillars." "But she wasn't broken," Adrian continued, picking up the story they had been telling together for months. "She was just getting ready for her metamorphosis. And when she came out of her cocoon, she was the most beautiful butterfly anyone had ever seen," Mila added, her voice getting softer as sleep approached. "But the best part," Natalia finished, "was that she remembered being a caterpillar. She remembered the struggles and the fears and the times when she thought she would never be beautiful. And that made her compassionate and wise and able to help other caterpillars who were scared of changing. And she lived happily ever after with her butterfly family," Mila whispered. "She lived happily ever after with her butterfly family," Adrian and Natalia agreed together. Later, After they had carried their sleeping daughter to her bed and tucked her in under the butterfly quilt her grandmother Rosa had made, Adrian and Natalia sat together in their bedroom, still wearing their wedding clothes and marveling at the journey that had brought them to this moment. "I have something for you," Adrian said, pulling a wrapped package from his dresser drawer. Inside was a leather-bound journal with Natalia's name embossed in gold on the cover. "For your next chapter," he explained. "Whatever story you want to write from here." Natalia opened the journal to find that the first page was already filled with Adrian's handwriting. "To the woman who taught me that the most beautiful love stories are the ones where people choose each other not just once, but every single day. To the woman who showed me that real strength comes from vulnerability, real beauty comes from authenticity, and real love comes from seeing someone completely and choosing them anyway. To my wife, my partner, my best friend, and the love of my life. Thank you for giving me the chance to be part of your story. Thank you for becoming someone worth writing about," Natalia replied, tears streaming down her cheeks. As they prepared for bed, Natalia caught sight of herself in the mirror and was struck by how different she looked from the woman who had once stood in this same position, pregnant and heartbroken, listening to her husband call her disgusting. That woman had been soft and uncertain, willing to diminish herself for love. This woman was strong and confident, secure in her own worth and power. That woman had been dependent on others for validation. This woman created her own validation through her work, her parenting, her choices. The pregnancy that had cost her a marriage had ultimately given her everything she had ever really wanted. A successful career that fulfilled her creative ambitions. A daughter who amazed her every day with her intelligence and empathy. Financial security that meant she would never again have to depend on anyone else's generosity. And now, finally, a partner who loved all of her. Not just the easy parts, but the complicated parts too. Someone who had seen her at her most vulnerable and chosen to love her more, not less. "What are you thinking about?" Adrian asked, noticing her contemplative expression. "I'm thinking about metamorphosis. About how sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened." "You mean us getting divorced?" "I mean you calling me disgusting when I was pregnant with our daughter. If you hadn't done that, I never would have left. I never would have been forced to rebuild myself from scratch. I never would have discovered how strong I really was." Adrian winced at the memory. "I still can't believe I said those words to you." "I'm glad you did. Not because I enjoyed being hurt, but because that pain became my catalyst. It forced me to stop trying to be what other people wanted me to be and start being who I really was." "And who are you really?" "I'm someone who builds beautiful things from broken pieces. I'm someone who turns rejection into rocket fuel. I'm someone who loves fiercely and protects what matters and never, ever gives up. You're someone magnificent. I'm someone who learned that the only approval I need is my own. The only validation that matters is what comes from living according to my own values. The only love worth having is the kind that sees all of you and chooses you anyway." Adrian pulled her close, marveling at how perfectly she fit against him, how right this felt after years of emptiness and regret. "I love you, Mrs. Montague. I love you too, but I'm keeping Rivera professionally. I wouldn't expect anything else." The woman who designed the Montague Center deserves to have her name on the building. As they settled into bed together, Natalia reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. She had lost herself in the ashes of their first marriage, but from those ashes had risen a phoenix. Someone stronger, more beautiful, more powerful than anything she had ever imagined possible. The woman Adrian had called disgusting had become someone magnificent. The wife he had rejected for gaining weight had transformed into a force of nature who commanded respect and changed skylines. The mother he had abandoned had raised a daughter so amazing that meeting her had fundamentally changed who he was as a person. Sometimes the greatest gifts come from the deepest wounds. Sometimes the people who break us also teach us how strong we really are. And sometimes, love really can conquer all. Not the easy love of perfect people, but the hard-won love of two souls who have seen each other's worst and chosen to believe in each other's best. Mila would grow up seeing what real love looked like. Not the shallow attraction of beautiful people, but the deep connection of two people who chose each other every day, who had fought for their love and won. In the end, the woman Adrian had thrown away for being imperfect had given him the most perfect life imaginable. A successful business partnership where they collaborated on projects that changed the city skyline. A daughter who amazed them both with her wisdom and creativity. A marriage built on respect, equality, and the kind of love that grew stronger with time instead of weaker. And that was worth more than all the social status and surface beauty in the world. If this story of transformation, redemption, and second chances touched your heart, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more incredible love stories that will restore your faith in the power of true love. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded that no matter how broken you feel, you have the power to rebuild yourself into something magnificent. And tell me in the comments, do you believe people can truly change, or was Adrian just lucky that Natalia was generous enough to give him a second chance he didn't deserve? Sometimes the end of one story is just the beginning of something even more beautiful. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to discover what really matters. And sometimes, the woman you called disgusting becomes the woman you'll spend the rest of your life trying to deserve. That's the power of metamorphosis. That's the magic of love that chooses to stay. And that's why some love stories are worth fighting for, no matter how long it takes to get them right.